Asian women.
I wish, though, some of the conversations that we're having now were more positive, but unfortunately, they're a bit more negative. How have you processed some of the tragedies that we've seen in terms of the anti-Asian hate violence that we've seen, not just in North America, but across the world?
It's hard to process. It's hard to imagine that we are still living after a year of the pandemic, after a year of George Floyd, and a lot of the social awareness that has come up, that these types of things are really still happening.
Have you experienced, whether it's verbally or in person, any anti-Asian sentiments or racist issues?
Growing up, my parents were Canadian, they were white. I lived in a very suburban childhood, in a neighborhood. So of course, was always, I think, the only Asian in my class most of the time that I can remember growing up. So of course, yes, more about, whether it's either a racial slur or just remarks that people think are funny, about Asians in general. So it's just, those things, yeah, I've certainly have experienced that.
You mentioned your parents are Canadian, and Canadians already love the Bills, so don't give us another reason to claim you and the team. But they moved to the United States to adopt you. How has your adoption story and your upbringing really impacted the person that you've become?
They actually became United States citizens so they could adopt me. They kind of made me feel that being adopted was something special, that they had really chosen me. And so it really wasn't until I got into my adult years that I really became aware that there were issues of diversity and issues of racism and things that divide people.
You're a driving force on the Inclusion and Diversity Board, not just in the NFL, but in the NHL as well. Are there unique challenges in hockey in relation to football in terms of finding a way to get closer to equity?
We have had some diverse athletes at the Sabres. There's just not as many of them. That's not to say that it's not welcome. As we say, hockey is for everyone, right? And but we have to look like that hockey is for everyone. If people can see it, then they feel like they can believe it.
Now, you don't need me to tell you that you don't look like the typical owner. Race, age, gender. How has that dynamic been a challenge for you?
It's very personal, right? It's very personal, it's very emotional. I learned over the first few years of ownership that that really the brand is really who we are as people, and that I needed to embrace that. And so I started saying yes, right? I started talking about myself and my upbringing, and it really resonated with a lot of people. And that's something that was really surprising to me. I didn't realize that anybody cared.
Do you hear some credit from Asians who say your representation really matters to me?
Yeah, you know what, I really do. Like I said before, I didn't realize that it mattered, but as I've spoken to different groups across, both the leagues and other clubs, and I do get a lot of notes saying that, listen, it's just great to see somebody that looks like me or that representing our background or our heritage in a role, speaking about sports, speaking about being empowering women, empowering Asians.
You have the power to empower people that aren't just from your community. What is the importance of allyship among equity-seeking groups?
I do, listen, I know we're talking about Asian awareness this month, but really, we're talking about just how we can bring everybody together. And I think that's where, finding that balance of, having these differences among us and celebrating them and empowering them, but at the same time, finding those common grounds. I would just encourage everyone to really, be your authentic self. And then if you can pay it forward, I guess, and accept others for who they are as well.